So this is just my initial, mostly non-spoiler reaction to Matrix Resurrections. You can't talk too much about the plot without being spoilerish, so I'll keep it very broad, but I'll say a few things. So in this one, Thomas Anderson is a kind of video game developer. He's seeing a therapist. He seems very sad and alone, and he's not clear if the dreams he's had, which essentially are memories of being Neo, are true or not. We do see Trinity. Her name is Tiffany now, and she has children and a husband. Of course, we know these are false identities. So a lot of the film is, can they see beyond the Matrix and this kind of new version of the Matrix? So let me say again, broadly, I really like this. I thought this was a lot stronger than Revolutions. This is below, I think, Reloaded, which I think is the best one. But I'm probably controversial that I like this more than even The Matrix because the problem with the first film is a lot of it is a mystery. It's just about Thomas awakening and then the big twist that what the Matrix is, and them explaining it and then rescuing Morpheus. They don't do that here. That part of it is only one third. Them essentially finding Neo, Neo waking up. That's only the first third. The other two thirds are its own story, and it does go places I did not predict. I did predict most of it, but they did add some twists and turns I did not anticipate. And this is a legit sequel. They do advance the story. If you're really into the Matrix lore, you're going to be very intrigued where they went and where they didn't go. Still, I'm not going to lie, it is a bit of misleading in terms of the new people and the old people. We do see some of these old people like Niobe, we do see the Merovingian, and so on and so forth. So we do get a lot of good stuff with the new people and old people, but a lot of it is a cameo role. And in terms of the critics, I would agree that the new Morpheus is fine. The acting is good, but it feels more like a parody of Morpheus. It feels kind of like a Joker version of Morpheus. And they kind of slightly explain why, but it's still a little unsatisfying. But some of the new people, I think, make up for this a lot with Bugs and Lexi and Zeke and a lot of the new crew, as well as the modifications they made and the advancements they've made. But I won't lie, I do think the main antagonist, I won't say who it is very interesting, and I thought he was very compelling. But the attempt to bring back Smith, I think, is a little mixed. I did like the actor trying to do Smith. Interesting new interpretation, but I still prefer Hugo Weaving in that way they did it, in the way he developed the character. It's kind of mixed on the performances, but overall, it's a very, very good film. Very entertaining. Yes, there are a lot of meta jokes. They do a lot of self-reference humor, but it's not what critics are saying that it's in every 3 seconds or it's drowning out the action or it ruins the film. For the most part, it was appropriate when they call back to the original trilogy and when they even use little bits and clips of the original trilogy. So for me, is what I wanted and they exceeded my expectations. I was actually fearful I'd be sort of kind of just giving a lukewarm recommendation. I'd actually have to give it a very strong recommendation, but there are two provisos. The action scenes are, in most cases, good, but they're not great. They're not excellent. So I would say yes, the original Matrix and Matrix Reloaded had much better, visually dazzling actions. The action scenes here are mostly functional. They're good, and they get the job done, and they're well shot, but it's a different style. They do the shaky cam, and some of the editing is a little sloppy in places, but again, it's a different aesthetic. The other part of it is much more philosophical. There is a lot more dialogue and conversation. It's not super convoluted, but if you're not familiar with the original trilogy in depth, you will get lost very quickly because they do not give consent. You really have to know the Matrix. So those two things, yes, the action scenes are a little underwhelming and it is very philosophical. So if you are not into that aspect of the Matrix, this will feel a little bit too much dry. So I think they managed to do a good, healthy bit of going back to the old themes and adding some new themes. And it seems not as political as you think. You'd have to really look closely to get to, well, what exactly are they trying to say? A very strong recommendation from me. I'm giving this an 8.35. It's very good in many places, but there are a few flaws. I mostly liked it, but I'm sure some people find the joking and even the romance a little stale, and they wish they just concentrated more on the action and did a kind of much more John Wick version, which may be totally possible. If this makes enough money, they may continue the chapters, and yeah, maybe the next one will be a much more kind of Wick Matrix mashup, and I wouldn't mind that. But I think for this one, they wanted to do something deliberately more philosophical and romantic, and I think for the most part it worked in most of the film. But some of it, yeah, some of it was very weak. Some of it needed a little bit more work in terms of dialogue.